another edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel, and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast with my partner, Gordon Wittenmeyer. I'm David Kaplan. All right, Gordon, let's get right into this. First, let's talk about the state of the ball club. I was in Milwaukee. They lose 3 of 4 there. I watched them over the weekend. They don't play well against the Reds. You were there. And then they come from 5-0 down to beat the White Sox with home runs from Morel, Wisdom, and a big 3-hit night, and a game-winning double from Ian Happ. So having seen them up close, both of us, your thoughts on where they're at right now?
They need help, man. When you go into that Sox Crosstown series and you can barely win a bye, man, that's and you have to come back two late inning rallies to do it. My God, man. Every team, I watched the Reds go into Chicago on the South Side earlier this year. They won by showing up. And about half the teams in baseball have done the same thing. Now, I understand it's crosstown emotions and all that, whatever. But the Cubs should run laps around that team. And that was kind of embarrassing. But we know they've had trouble, and some of it reared, although Shota, that's 2 in a row for him. I don't know what that means. Somebody's on him. Scouting reports are on him. He's going to have to adjust back to the league. It's the same, Cap. The bullpen's an issue. The hitting's an issue. Fielding the ball is an issue. They were throwing that ball all over the place over the weekend against the Reds. You still don't have a third baseman. I mean, when David Bodie is the guy that people are saying, give him a shot, and they bring him up, and he's one of your answers in the middle of the season, with all due respect to David Bodie, that's not saying a lot for a team that expects to make the playoffs.
I don't disagree with that. Now, I will tell you this. I thought it was and I got to give my wife credit first because I wasn't really thinking about it. We were going to watch the Cardinals game on Friday night. It's raining. It ends up getting rained out. And she said, oh, well, we'll watch Imanaga pitch tomorrow. And I look and I go, he's not pitching tomorrow. She's like, well, he was supposed to pitch today, that Friday. Oh, and then I look and he's not pitching Sunday. They move him all the way to freaking Wednesday. And my wife said to me, I know you like to get your feet wet gambling a little bit. I promise you he's going to lose and pitch terribly against Milwaukee. He's rolling. Why would you give him all these extra days? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. He's had like 10 days off. Since she made that comment, he's had 2 bad outings. Now, he wasn't horrible against the White Sox because there was a big error in there, but he wasn't good. He was horrible against the Brewers.
Yeah, rewind the tape on this podcast. I told you I didn't say it in so many terms to her. I didn't tell you to go bet money on it, but I said that would be the caution, right? That would be the concern in backing him up that far. And then I don't know what to say about the second one. The third one is going to tell us whether it's a trend or not. But they need help. They better go get it. It's already June. Teams have already made trades, and this division is there. I tell you what, Cap. There's something came across the wires overnight. It was updated today in the division. Something that the Cubs. Nobody should celebrate this, but it's something that the Cubs should take into account as they look forward. Robert Gasser, the rookie starter for the Milwaukee Brewers, is on the IL. He's going to get a second opinion. Got a flexor tendon issue. That's not good. He's going to go see a surgeon for a second opinion. Guy was one of their brighter lights in their big start this year.
He handcuffed the Cubs.
Totally shut them down. And
they weren't the only team he handcuffed.
And we've already talked that the weakness with the Brewers, or the potential weakness, is, can their pitching hold up all year? Do they have enough depth? Do they have enough sort of stamina, because a lot of their guys are young, to get through the whole season at the rate they're going? And this is a big setback for them, a really big setback. And again, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, but it opens up the division even more for everybody else who's in it.
So as we watch them offensively, Jed talked to the media before game 1 of the 2 games at Wrigley in the Crosstown and said, Look, I know it's in there because I saw it in April. No doubt we've got to play better, but I believe we will play better. He said that's where the improvement has to come from. Patrick Mooney also intimated that Pete Alonso would be a guy heavily on their shopping list. Look, you've got a top 3 farm system, top 4 farm system. You may not have the Orioles type prospects, but you're pretty damn good. How expensive is it to rent Pete Alonso for, let's call it half of June, July, August, September?
Well, all I know is the prices last year at the deadline were really high. And part of that is the market with the increased number of teams that make the playoffs every year. There's way more teams that can consider themselves buyers if they choose to. And that was the case last year. There were a lot more teams than usual in the race. And they were legitimately in the race. We saw the National League last wild card spot go all the way to the last weekend. And so that drives up prices all the time. I don't see prices coming down this year. If he's the premier bat on the market, that's going to be a high price. Maybe not as high as pitching, in particular starting pitching. That's always the highest price thing in the trade market. But it'll cost you. You'll feel the cost, put it that way. Now, my thing would be, is that the guy you want to prioritize? You want to prioritize that bat. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. He would massively help that lineup. No question about it. But is that your biggest need by the time you get to the dog days and into September, when you have a chance to maybe get to the playoffs, and then in October? Or is your biggest need bullpen? And should you really make that the highest priority? And if you're going to feel the pain of what you give up in trades, should it be there?
Well, I would answer that this way. I want both. You're the freaking Chicago Cubs. And
well,
I know
free agency came in, you being the Chicago freaking Cubs.
Right. But here's my problem with that school of thought. Should I do this or should I do that? Look, I'm not expecting you to go out and give up 8 of your top prospects and go get Juan Soto and Aaron Judge from the Yankees. I'm not pie in the sky craziness here. You should be able to add a significant bullpen arm and Pete Alonso. That should not, your budget should not be blown by that.
If you can do that, then you can probably paper over your deficit at third base. And, if it's Pete Alonso and Cody Bellinger is back to full-time in the outfield, and Bush is a bona fide bench guy now, you're rotating guys through the DH spot, you better win the division. Yeah, you should win the division. That should be, yeah, absolutely. You should win it going away. You make those moves, and the train starts picking up speed.
Yeah, you're 6 games back in the division as we tape here on Wednesday the 5th. As soon as we get done, I'm heading to Wrigley.
Yeah, but dude, here's the thing. All 4 teams behind the Brewers are clustered within 2 games of each other.
No question. But the Brewers, as you mentioned, have the Gasser issue. They still don't have Devin Williams back. They'll get him back at some point. They're a good team. I don't know if they're a great team. And on top of all of that, the Cubs have the financial might more than anyone else in the division to be able to do pretty much what they need to do.
To take on salary. But a lot of teams can take on rental. Almost any team can take on a rental player. And by the way, pretty much any team with player capital can do anything they want to at the trade deadline, because you can get the seller to pick up salary if you're giving them enough prospect capital. So they're not going to have the advantage that they might have had in free agency. And that's where a whole bunch of teams wanting some of the same players they're going to want makes a difference. And, I've mentioned this multiple times, like last year when it came to them looking for kind of help on a budget a little bit in terms of what they were willing to give up in a high price market. They wanted the lefty Sam Moll from the A's. The Reds got him instead. They thought they had him. That's how close it came. They thought on the eve of the deadline they had him, and they didn't, because there's that kind of high demand. And they could lose players that they're willing to pay for, that they're willing to take salary on, and somebody likes the other prospect better, or somebody else kicks in a deal you can't refuse.
Yeah, the more you know me, I like my top prospects to be with me, but then I see Cade Horton, has a lat problem on the side. I see this guy has a problem and that guy has a problem around baseball. And I look and I go, you know what? If you freaking feel you can get to the postseason, Jim Bowden put it best the other day when he said, look, if the Cubs just get in with Steele, if Imanaga is who we think he is, and Tyone, he said that team could do damage in a series. Absolutely could do damage. Then there's no excuse not to try and win.
Well, let me add this too, Cap. Do you like Hayden Wisniewski and Ben Brown?
I do.
Okay, these were prospects that were picked up in recent seasons when the Cubs were selling. And if these guys are contributors all the way through the rest of this season, and we've seen some very good signs so far from both of them, then you've got two in the bank, man. You've got two in the bank that you went and picked up when you were on the other side of the trade deadline coin. And those guys are helping you now. If you give up something in the farm system, you could make the case that it's no worse than a wash, given the success that you think you've had with those moves. So all the more reason to perhaps be aggressive.
Okay, now we've seen all this stuff going on. There's a new TV network coming. NBC Sports Chicago's going to go bye-bye. They're not going to have any games on their air anymore. Unfortunately,
are you the face of this new network?
Pardon me?
Are you the face of this new network?
No, I am not.
Are we going to break some news on the podcast?
We're not. You're not. But with them going away, and we keep hearing that Xfinity Comcast is going to take all the regional networks, not just in Chicago, everywhere, and put them on a higher tier where people have to pay to get them. Yeah. That will affect subscription in dollars to Marquee, to this new network, and all these other teams.
Advertising too, because your viewerships that you can claim is going to go down.
Correct. Because it used to be that Ma and Pa Kettle in the middle of, Illinois went, we watch National Geographic. We're not sports fans. Well, too bad. Your cable bill, part of it's going to fund those contracts that they give to teams. And that's not the way it's going to be anymore. Do you think we're going to see a regression, not a rising tide lifts all boats philosophy where teams are not going to spend the money because they won't have it that we used to see in free agency?
Yeah, we've already seen some of that adjustment with some of the smaller market teams that have been associated with Bally, whose parent company is in bankruptcy proceedings right now. And and what you're describing is when the Xfinity Comcast people, which is right the cable model, decide that they're going to package these individual sports channels as higher tier. That's essentially what streaming is, because it's making you choose. I'm the sports fan. If I really want that, I'm the one that's going to be paying for it. Not a Ma and Pa in the middle of Illinois who don't care about sports. And so it's really, and so that's what direct to consumer is all about. That's what they mean when they talk about streaming and direct to consumer, is that it's a la carte. You pay for what you want to watch. And that is going to dramatically reduce television revenues locally, at least short term. And this is, MLB is scrambling. They're trying to get as many teams as possible under an umbrella so they can sell packages like the other leagues do, and then distribute that money amongst the teams that are under that umbrella. The Yankees don't want any part of that. The Cubs don't want any part of that, although the Cubs are worried that Marquee is going to be subject to this when their deal is up, which I think might be the end of next year.
No, end of this season.
End of this year. So it starts next season. Yeah. So they're worried about that too. And I don't know why, if you're not going to include the channel that has a number of sports teams on it in the lower or middle tier, why you would include the one team channel in the lower or middle tier.
Oh, I don't think they will. I think they're going to make that an across the board thing across the country.
I completely agree with you. So even Marquee and the Cubs, which has struggled because they launched it during the pandemic. They had all kinds of issues. They've been playing catch up ever since, and now they're going to take another hit because of what's around the next corner in TV broadcasting. So, and then yeah, absolutely, we've seen the on-field impact of that already in places like Cleveland and Minnesota. Although Cleveland seems to have overcome it pretty well. They mandated their front office not spend any money. I think they cut since last year, and they're like 20 games over 500. I don't know how they do it, but that's not because they went out and got players. And the Twins cut spending as well because of the same thing. And so we could absolutely see that. We could see a what do you call it? A market correction, I guess is what they call it when you're talking Wall Street. I don't know how long it'll last. People, especially on the labor side, talk like, oh, well, long term, this is going to make a bunch of money, and I push back. Well, what about in the meantime? No, it's a real issue in the meantime. And long term, nobody knows what it's going to look like exactly long term.
Okay, let's talk about what lineup you would run out there, because I got a lot of people that have tweeted at me, hey, can you guys talk about the lineup? Yes, we can. So for me, Pete Crow Armstrong is playing basically every day in center field. Hit at the bottom of the lineup, that's fine. But I am playing him. Michael Busch is no longer my starting first baseman. He'll get some run. Cody Bellinger is going to play between DH and first base, mostly at first base is where I'm going to have him.
You get Pete Alonso, right?
Until you get Pete Alonso. If you got Pete Alonso, he's at first. Cody Bellinger is my DH, and a day a week or 2 days a week, he's playing center. The rest of it's Pete Crow Armstrong.
Well, I'd stick him in right field. He won a Gold Glove in right field, and the guy out there now drops fly balls.
He's made 2 errors all season. Relax.
He's made ridiculous errors. And by the way, that one weekend against the Reds, he was shaky on a couple other ones.
Well, the one that he dropped against the Reds was in a monsoon. Then that game should never have started.
Okay, he's the only one that dropped one.
That's true. I'll give you that.
And he did it, and it's not the first time.
He's also the only guy that hit one deep into the Wrigley night and had the Reds fans crying in their beer.
He got them all back. That was the craziest thing ever.
Wow. Drop one, 3 score, bottom of the inning.
Well, not only 3 score, but there were 2 outs. And then there was another hit that scored another one. 4 unearned runs.
Yeah. Crazy. So as you look at the lineup, obviously Nico Horner's going to play second. Shortstop's going to be Dansby Swanson. First base, I just told you. You have to fix your catching problem. They have to go out and acquire a catcher. For all of Wilson Contreras' issues, breaking iPads with his temper in the clubhouse and all that, they stink at catcher. They can't throw anybody out. I know their pitching staff doesn't do a great job holding guys on, like Neris last night in the 9th. And then they fortunately picked that kid off of second, making his major league debut, Duke Ellis. But I don't know what you do at catcher. You got to go get somebody. I don't care what he hits. He's got to be able to be better behind a plate throwing runners out. We'll see what they do there.
Look at Maldonado.
I hit better than he does.
Who cares? The Astros won a World Series because they invested in him behind the plate because of how high quality he is with a pitching staff.
They got him from the Cubs.
Right.
They did. Cubs had him.
I got 2 thoughts on this, and they involve ex-Cubs. And one of them is a guy you just brought up, Wilson Contreras. He not only was good and cared, he was a good hitter, one of the best hitting catchers in the league. He also cared and worked on his game and tried to get better behind the plate. They decided that they didn't have use for what he was. They didn't. But the other part that he brought to it, as you and I both know, was a sort of a heart and an edge to the clubhouse. And the clubhouse is full of good guys, competitive guys, in some cases, guys that have won rings. But it doesn't. There's a little bit more of a workmanlike atmosphere in there than there was when some of these other guys were around in recent years, and no more so than Contreras. And so I think they lost a lot with him. But I'm not going to belabor that point. It is what it is. Guys move on and things change. and they got a lot out of their catching core last year. But here's the other ex-Cub I'm going to bring up. David Ross. David Ross was a pretty damn good catcher in his day, and he knows catching when he sees it, and he knows what's working and what's not with a guy behind the plate, and he can communicate with those guys. And I wonder whether some of their success last year was because he was the manager. And I'll say something else about him. I mean, I have no issue with Craig Counsell as a quality of manager he is. Some people
won the game in game 1 against the White Sox. He called the pickoff at second. Neris even said, "I got that from Skip. He gave me the signal."
Yeah, that's not rocket science. I mean,
And
the guy's a rookie. He's dancing off the base. He doesn't know whether he wants to go or not. He had a jump where he should have stolen on the first pitch and he didn't.
Right.
So I mean that's not rocket
and
science.
The pit decision to hit Wisdom for Bush, and he hits the game-tying home run.
Okay, well, it was 3 feet from being a flyout. I mean, what I'm saying is the guy's executed. Plenty of managers can make those decisions. They were the right calls, the right moves to make. They don't always work. Sometimes they do. Neither one of them was genius by definition.
But they work.
I'm not ripping Counsell. I'm not disparaging him one iota. He's a really, really good manager. And some people think he's the best in the game. And if we wanted to sit down and have beers and talk about that, I might say Bruce Bochy is, even at his age in Texas. And I wouldn't have any problem if we settled on Counsell as the best. Here's the thing, though. How much difference does he make from last year's guy? And what impact has he had so far on this team? Because the other thing that we've seen is that they weren't happy with the way Rossi played some of the young guys or didn't play some of the young guys. They weren't happy with the way he handled the bullpen when the bullpen failed for long stretches a couple of times in a season at least. And so they bring this guy in who's got a great reputation with both. And what did we find out? Look, things might turn out great. The Cubs might wind up winning 90-plus games and win this division going away and win a couple rounds of the playoffs. That may happen, and it may all be because of Craig Counsell. Again, I'm not ripping Craig Counsell. What I'm saying is that we have found that he has given Christopher Morel a long leash at third base.
He has.
Rossi knew what he saw, and that's why he didn't play him there. I suspect that given choices, you're not going to see a hell of a lot of Christopher Morel at third base when the games matter most down the stretch. And I would hope for Cubs fans' sakes, you don't.
Who's going to play there? David Bodie?
Maybe David Bodie. Why do you think he's here? He's a better option at this point as we sit here today. Might not be tomorrow, might not be next week, but right now, than what you have. And so maybe it's him. Maybe you get somebody at the trade deadline. Maybe there's some roster shuffling that winds up putting somebody else out there. You make a discovery down the stretch. My point is that Rossi knew what he had last year in that guy, and yet we had to relearn it this year. And maybe when it comes to the bullpen, Rossi wasn't a complete idiot. Maybe the guys weren't good enough out there. And maybe that's what we're seeing again with Counsell. Maybe it's not the manager. So that's all I'm saying is that, we can easily sort of point to, well, they've upgraded the manager. Well, yeah, maybe they have, but maybe it's not this much of an upgrade. Maybe it's not the upgrade that the front office thought it was,
or we've been led to believe,
And I think there are real indicators that point to that.
Gordon, have a great rest of your day, man. Cubs and White Sox one more, and then it's off to the Queen City of Cincinnati. All
right, that's a 4-gamer too. That could be the difference between second and fifth, the way the standings are right now.
Wow. Have a great day.
All right, you too, man.
That's my guy, Gordon Wittenmeyer.
Good luck on the event. You should
say that again.
The event on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, to walkisOneChicago.org. Thank you for telling me. I'm walking 22 miles to raise money for Bernie's Book Bank. We're trying to hit $200,000 tomorrow. So if you are listening to this podcast, whether it's Thursday, Friday, next week, whenever it is, just go to berniesbookbank.org and you can make a donation to Walk as One to put books in the hands of underserved boys and girls in the Chicago area. They've given over 25 million books away. Thank you for telling me that.
What a great cause.
It's awesome.
It's outstanding.
For Gordon, I'm Cap. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate you, and make sure you check in on our Cubs recaps after every Cubs game. Take that.